Peace and blessings, brothers and sisters. This is Jarrett coming to you live, man. I have a disturbing announcement for you guys. Some of you may have heard about it, some of you may have not, but I just want to make sure that everybody does know so that we're not caught off guard in the up and coming times that are soon to come for us. There is a memo that went live from the FBI that was written on August 3rd. It wasn't released until this month in October. Actually, Foreign Policy was the first group, I think, to bring it to the public. But this is a document from the FBI stating that the FBI is starting something similar to a COINTELPRO movement against the black community, and they're labeling those in the black community who are doing things of nation building, things of collaboration, anything that has to do with having an African culture or African identity, Afrocentricity. Those things are being pointed out and mislabeled as what the FBI would call black identity extremists. Okay, there's a group of words now, kind of how in the 80s and 90s they used to call us thugs and criminals. Now, during this time, there's going to be words coming up such as black identity extremists, black separatist extremists, domestic extremists, sovereign citizen extremists. These are all titles that are given for black people that are all on terrorist watch list. So if anything is ever given to you under that title, if you ever see that on documentation with your name next to it, you know that you're in a bad situation. The fact that they're doing these things are in direct violation to our First Amendment rights. They've already, in the recent times, since Charlottesville, actually, they've taken white separatist groups and white supremacist groups off of the terrorist watch list, but they're now moving black groups onto the watch list. Groups such as the Nation of Islam, groups such as the Moors, the Hebrew Israelites. These individuals will become under attack in the very near future. We have there's a dossier that went out to law enforcement nationwide. They are already working on the precautions to ensure that these things happen so that you can continue to quote unquote be violent and be seen and shown as violent. It says in the documentation that there are open source reporting. What they're doing, what they call open source reporting is the media, your social media, things that you're putting out, your text messages, things that they hear over the phone. So we all have to be very cautious as to what it is we're talking about and what it is that we're saying, because we are being listened to. They are pulling these things together, and they have buzzwords that they're looking out for. Anything that has to do with nationalism, anything that has to do with black conscious, they're turning that into a demonized title. They have situations here, 6 different situations where they're saying that the B.I.E, quote unquote, the B.I.E, are attacking police, and that we're becoming actively involved in arming ourselves against the police and against other peoples. They have different events here. They have a shooting that happened in New York City. They have Michael Johnson, July 7th, 2016. He ambushed and shot 11 officers. This is in Dallas, Texas. This is the one example that they're continuously using against us or against the black community to say that we're trying to arm ourselves. This was the man that shot 5 officers or killed 5 officers at the Black Lives Matter protest down in Dallas, Texas. This is not something that represents the greater population, but at the same time they're using this as a platform to say that we're doing things against the government and conspiring in our corners. They also have a lot of quote unquote sources on here, but all the sources say that they're confidential, which is funny because if you look in the footnotes, it says that this document is not confidential to law enforcement agencies, and this was obviously sent to law enforcement agencies. So there's a lot of gaps and holes as to how all this can be done. As stated earlier in this interview, I said that this was COINTELPRO-like from the FBI. From their document, I'm going to read a portion that states that they've been watching the black community for the last 20 years. So this is to let you know that this is a continuation of the past experience. The B.I.E. violence has been rare over the past 20 years, and there is sparse evidence of any convergence from the SCEs who adhere to Moorish beliefs, who have historically engaged in nonviolent, fraudulent schemes, including production of fraudulent personal identification documents such as international motorist certifications, passports, vehicle titles, and registrations and birth certificates in support of their claim of sovereignty. Then it also says in another part, and I wanted to point out, it says that these people, they're talking about the Moorish people, they're talking about the SCEs are the sovereign citizen extremists, and that's what they're calling the Moorish people. And they're saying that the Moorish people, that all they're doing in the history is engaging in nonviolent, fraudulent schemes, such as producing, what they call to be bad documentation. But then it states right in the same paragraph that violence has typically occurred in response to encounters with law enforcement, for example, during traffic stops or the issuing of warrants, rather than through premeditated target aggressions. So what the purpose of this entire document is to say that the black community is arming themselves and attacking law enforcement. But then it states specifically right there that violence only occurs when we have encounters with law enforcement in a self-defense manner, that it is not premeditated or targeted aggression. So within their own documentation, they're letting you know that the only reason you're going to attack is if you're protecting yourself, and so they're going to continue to attack you in order to continue to allow this propaganda to stand up. So I just want everybody to know that they're purposely going to aggravate you. They're purposely going to show us on TV, getting in these situations, getting into these skirmishes. They're going to purposely do this in order to perpetuate the B.I.E. movement and the B.I.E. Title that they're trying to give to the black community. There's also a group, and I have it here on my Facebook page. I wanted to shout out, since we are on the West Coast, there is a group, a white separatist group, calling themselves RAM, which stands for the Rise Above Movement. RAM is a group of neo-Nazis down in Huntington Beach, and Orange County down there in the South, Ventura Beach, and down in South LA and stuff like that. And they are arming themselves, as well as having what I would call mosh pit-like trainings. And what they do is get each other in groups and they just beat on each other, because what they're doing is getting ready for these riotous situations, such as Charlottesville, some of the other events that we've seen where you see the separatists coming together and just causing mutiny in public. And they are ready and preparing for these types of incidences. But at the same time, they are not on the federal terrorist watch list. So I want everybody to know that though they are arming themselves against us, they are not being watched, and you are. But that does not mean that you cannot protect yourself or that you should not protect yourself. As I said, the police are going to continue to agitate us. I wanted to look at the outlook, as stated here, outlook. I wanted to show you what their outlook is of this situation of the B.I.E. title and name. It says that the FBI assesses that it is very likely that B.I.E.'s perception of unjust treatment of African Americans and the perceived unchallenged illegitimate actions of law enforcement will inspire premeditated attacks against law enforcement over the next years. So what they're saying right there in their outlook is that what they think is our attacks on them is going to come from them getting off from the murder of us. So if they continue to murder us and get off, obviously we're going to continue to get upset, and from us getting upset, we're going to propagate their B.I.E. Agenda. Okay, so it also states here that this may also lead to an increase in B.I.E. group membership, collaboration among B.I.E. groups, or the appearance of additional violent lone offenders motivated by B.I.E. rhetoric. So obviously, like I said, when things like this happen, we're going to link together. It's going to cause us to have unity. And as we begin to unify, they're going to use that as an excuse for us becoming under this quote unquote B.I.E. title. Okay. Also, it states the FBI further assesses it is very likely additional controversial police shootings of African Americans and the associated legal proceedings will continue to serve as drivers for violence against law enforcement. The FBI assesses it is likely police officers of minority groups are also targeted by the B.I.E. because they are also representative of a perceived oppressive law enforcement system. So as stated, this is in their exact writings. Okay, I don't have to change the wording. You can look it up for yourself. They're going to continue to attack us. They're going to continue to frustrate us. They're going to continue to install agents and mess with us in order to, continue to propagate this B.I.E. agenda, the Black identity extremists. So I want everybody to look out for that. I want everybody to make sure that you pay attention to what you're putting on social media, talking about killing police officers, talking about attacking people, talking about, lashing out on people, even in the comment section. All that stuff goes into the big database. All that stuff is being tied together. All of your friends' affiliates and stuff like that. Just pay attention to what you're doing, who your affiliates are. Pay attention to who you're befriending on these different social media sites. If you don't know them, do not befriend them. They're not your friend. They don't need access to all your personal information. Also put your stuff on private. These are things that need to be done just to protect ourselves, and protect what we're doing. Some of you that have put work in the community know that you've had your social media sites shut down or hacked or otherwise tampered with. I know a lot of friends of mine have been kicked off of YouTube for posting things that are quote unquote risque to the political correctness of the world. So I just want to make sure that everybody is doing the things that they need to do to continue to spread our Black agenda, continue to nation build, continue to build unity, but at the same time not put ourselves in a position where we're victims or able to be victimized. So with that being said, this is Jarrett, and this is the B.I.E. wrap up.